There we go. All right. So good morning, everyone. We are going to start out this morning in a reclined position. So please feel free to start making your way down to the mat for a reclined position. If you don't want to be reclined, you can be in a seated position. That is not a problem at all. Wherever you are, just starting to find a comfortable position, and that might mean getting a few wiggles out first, readjusting yourself. Knowing that it is always okay to move around in any yoga practice. If you get someplace and it doesn't feel quite right, it's always okay to readjust. So taking that time to adjust, to feel liberated to move in any way that you'd like to. And then begin to start to settle down the movement and start to find a place of stillness. It can be helpful to take the hands to the belly, or to take one hand to the belly and one hand to the heart, as an additional way to ground yourself into this moment. Starting to feel the breath in the body. Feeling the belly rising and falling. And starting to tune into these subtle sensations that we often aren't even aware of. Perhaps also noticing the chest rising and falling with the breath. The rib cage expanding and contracting. Noticing that in the front body, but perhaps also noticing that in the back of the rib cage as well. A yoga practice can be a great opportunity or invitation to be completely present with what is happening in any given moment. Be curious about what is happening with no need to adjust it or change it or fix it. Simply allowing yourself to be exactly as you are. A yoga and a mindfulness practice just kind of gives us this opportunity to be curious, interested, tuned in a little bit more, slowed down a little more. And often from that slowed down place, we can make wiser decisions simply by tuning in and slowing down. So I would invite you for this practice today to give yourself a little push when you maybe need a little push to do more, or give yourself a little permission to slow down and be a little more gentle when that's needed, simply by paying attention and being curious. That curiosity followed by, oh yeah, I can do that for you. I can give you a little more, I can give you a little less. So starting out nice and easy with some movement, we'll begin to hug the right knee in towards the chest. And if you'd like to, you can slide the left leg down if that feels permissible in your body. Kind of plugging the shoulder blades in, lengthening out the crown of the head, the neck. One more breath here. And then we'll take the left hand to the left hip for stability. Take that right leg away from the body. So whether your left leg is bent or your left leg is straight, either way, we're grounding down on that left side as we open up through the right side. Expanding through the chest and the collarbone. And then on the next exhalation, with the left hand, you can guide that right leg across the body. You can take the right hand out towards the right if you'd like to, taking your gaze along with you. Perhaps intentionally elongating the right hip down and away from the right rib cage. And then with the next exhalation, gently coming back to center. Hands can come behind that right leg, and we'll begin to take a stretch through the hamstring muscles. As much of a bend in the knee as necessary. Also remember, you can have that left foot planted for a little more support and stability if you feel too much of a tug through the right hamstring muscles. Invite some ease into the upper body. Offer yourself a little bit more or a little bit less. If you want to, you could start to tuck the chin and hug in a little bit deeper. Or you could back off a little bit, take that bend back into the left knee. And then nice and easy, replacing that right leg down onto the mat. Take a little pause here. Perhaps taking a brief inventory. And then hugging that left knee in towards the chest. Little stretch for the low back, stretch for the back of that left leg. If you'd like to extend the right leg, you can. This side might feel totally different than the other, and it may or may not be permissible on this side. Continuing with that invitation to ask and receive. And from here, we'll take the right hand and place it on that right frontal hip point as an anchor, and gently take the left knee away from the body, plugging the shoulder blades down onto the mat, lengthening the spine. Taking a few breaths here with that inner thigh stretch, offering a little bit more or a little bit less, whatever is needed. Continuing to be mindful of the breath as it moves through the body. And then coming back through to center, we'll take that right hand to the outer left knee and carefully take it across the body for a spinal twist, opening up through the chest, elongating that space between left hip and left rib cage. Sometimes the left hip can kind of hike up a little bit in this posture. Breathing here, noticing how the breath moves through the body a little differently in this different position. And coming back through to center, you can take the hands behind that left leg, lengthen in an amount that is safe and appropriate for your body. Perhaps taking that bend back in the right knee for a little more support. Perhaps climbing up that left leg a little bit more for a deeper stretch if that feels right. Breathing here. And then releasing down from that, rebending the left knee, placing left and right knee next to one another. And just kind of plugging the whole back body down onto the mat. And that doesn't mean you have to push super hard with the low back so much that the tailbone lifts off. but you don't want a deep arch in the low back either. It's going to kind of depend on the configuration of your body, but you want to try to find a sense here that the back body is pretty well anchored down onto the mat. The core is going to start to engage, and we're going to lift the knees so they're stacked on top of the hips. Feet can be flexed, and then we'll take the elbows and stack those on top of the shoulders, palms of the hands facing towards one another. And then plug the shoulder blades back down onto the mat, elongate the neck, feel the abdominal muscles engaging, and we'll lengthen the right arm and the left leg, and exhale, bend. Inhale, lengthen left arm and right leg, and exhale, bend. Continuing to take that at your own pace, trying to keep the other limbs pretty steady, trying to keep that sense that the back body is plugged down onto the mat, the core is engaged, the torso is lengthened. Anytime you need a pause, you're taking it. Anytime you feel strain, maybe you want to double check in with the shoulders or with the low back. Take any small adjustments that are needed. And then from here, we'll lengthen all of the limbs in an amount that is appropriate for you. So perhaps that means that there is some softness to the knees in order to keep that pull out of the hamstring muscles. And from here, we'll take the right leg or the right arm out towards the right and the left leg out towards the left. Exhaling, bringing them back towards center, and then inhaling, left arm and right leg go out towards the side. And exhale back to center. Taking that at your own pace, taking it nice and slow. If we get going too fast, sometimes we're just like flopping around, and we want to keep it as purposeful as possible. Keep it in the abdominal muscles, strengthening the back body, the front of the torso. Using the breath, inhaling out and exhaling back to center. Noticing that the spine is kind of your anchor at midline. And coming back through to center. Take a pause or hug the knees in if you'd like to. And then we'll come into one last thing here in this dead bug series, taking the right arm, reaching it up, and then lowering the left leg. Exhaling, bringing them back towards the center. And then left arm lowers and right leg lowers. Exhaling back to center. So this is a good opportunity to kind of evaluate if you want a little bit more or a little bit less. It's a good time to evaluate if there's pain. If there's pain, take the range of motion significantly smaller, or maybe hug the knees into the chest and take a little stretch, a little pause. You don't have to have a huge range of motion here. Each time resetting yourself back to center, and then taking the opposite side. And maybe one more time on each direction. And then from here, hugging the knees into the chest, maybe coming into a little ball, drawing the chin towards the knees, the nose towards the knees, lifting the upper back off of the mat if that feels good. Perhaps a little rock side to side. And from here, we're going to make our way up to an all fours position. If you don't want to be at all fours, you could come to a seated position for a seated cat-cow. I'm going to take a few rounds of cat-cow here, just kind of stretching out the spine a little bit, bringing the spine into that rounded position, stretching cat. And then inhaling, lowering the belly button, reaching the gaze forward, tipping the sits bones skyward, and taking that flexion and extension of the spine a few more times. Noticing the pelvis moving, the rib cage moving. Noticing perhaps the front body stretching and then the front body contracting. And then eventually here landing in a place of stillness, a neutral spine. If you don't want to be on all fours, you could come down to the belly. We'll extend the right leg and just kind of balance out the hips here, engage the core, and the left arm. On the next exhalation, releasing those down, and we'll extend the right arm and the left leg. Finding symmetry in the torso, shoulders, and hips as you continue to move. And you can kind of take that muscle memory from when we were on our backs, thinking about the whole back body being grounded down onto the mat. We don't have the support of the mat for our back body anymore, but we can kind of bring that memory with us of trying to keep the shoulders and the hips pretty stable as we lengthen the limbs. Engaging the core, maybe taking that another time or two on each side. And releasing down from that. From there, we're going to cross the right leg over the left. And then we're going to walk the hands out towards the left. So we're getting a deep stretch through the right side body. And then coming back through to center. And we'll take the left leg and cross it, just kind of across that right leg. Walk the hands out to the right now, getting that stretch through the whole left side of the body. And then walking ourselves back to center. Do one more abdominal thing here. So here we are on all fours. Curling under the toes, we're going to elevate the knees up off of the mat, keeping the core engaged. So they're hovering maybe just a couple of inches up off of the mat. Lengthening the spine. Breathing here, core is engaged, back is neutral. And then releasing down from that. We'll take the big toes together, knees apart, and press back into child's pose. If you don't want to be in child's pose, if that doesn't feel good on your knees or you don't like this position, feel free to come to a cross-legged seated forward fold, or you could come down onto your belly and kind of windshield wiper the legs back and forth a little bit, finding something restorative. We're going to do something a little bit different here. In our child's pose, we're going to find a flow between two different poses. So from child's pose, we're going to start to take the whole torso forward, almost like we're coming into cobra. You can separate the feet, lift up the chest in any range of motion. You can have it fairly low or fairly high. Pelvis is rooting down, pubic bone rooting down. Lengthening out through the torso, engaging the legs, and then from there, taking those big toes back together and pressing back into your child's pose. Now, if you don't like that movement on the knees, it's fine to stay on the belly, going between windshield wiper legs and cobra. Again, if you're in that child's pose, taking that sliding all the way forward into your low or high cobra, but it's a little bit different because the feet are wider than mat width distance. And then exhaling, drawing those big toes back together, pressing back to child's pose. We'll do that just a couple more times, articulating the spine forward, coming through to that low or high cobra, legs apart, exhaling big toes back together into child's pose. And then one last time, articulating the spine, rounding it all the way forward into cobra, and exhaling back to child's pose. Now from here, feel free to stay in child's pose or windshield wiper legs, or press back into downward facing dog, pedaling out the feet a little bit, pressing the chest back towards the thighs. And again, we're going to find kind of a little mini flow. So we're going to take a deeper bend in the knees. And then from here, we're going to step the left foot all the way forward to the pinky edge of the left hand. So kind of a lizard lunge position here. And we'll inhale, left arm up, and exhale, left hand back down. Stepping back into that kind of buoyant downward facing dog with a deeper bend in the knees, keeping that length in the spine. And then we'll take right leg forward. Inhale, right arm up. Exhale, right hand back down. Stepping back into that kind of crouching, kind of down dog position. Left foot steps forward. If you want to do this from all fours, you certainly could. You don't have to go back into that down dog. Left arm reaches up. Exhale down. Back to that down dog. Right leg steps forward. Right arm comes up. Right arm reaches back down, and we'll do that one more time on each side. So finding either, if you wanted to do the kind of more all fours position, totally fine. Left leg steps forward. We'll reach the left arm up. Exhaling, releasing it down. Left leg steps back. Right leg steps forward. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. And then you can just simply walk both of the feet up to the top of the mat. Finding a forward fold, bring a generous bend to the knees if you'd like to. Lengthen the spine. Maybe shaking the head no. Release the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. And then again, maybe taking this opportunity as a brief inventory. How are you doing so far? On the next inhalation, finding a halfway lift. And on the next exhalation, folding everything back in. Rooting through the feet to rise, coming all the way up to standing. From here, we'll take the right hand to the left wrist and reach over towards the left, keeping the chest nice and open. Coming back to center, switching the clasp and reaching over towards the left, keeping that length in the right side body. Coming back to center, sweeping the hands around and inhaling, lifting the chest, supporting the low back, drawing shoulder blades towards one another. Gaze might come slightly up. And on the next exhalation, back to center. Inhale, reach the arms up, and exhale, fold forward. Inhaling, rooting through the feet, lifting the chest, reaching the torso forward. A little more weight through the balls of the feet here. And exhale, folding in. From here, we're going to step the left leg back into kind of a low lunge position. You can be down on the knee if you'd like to, or you can be elevated. Right knee is going to be stacked on top of right ankle. And from here, we're going to kind of find another little mini flow where we're going to flow kind of between two different poses. So this one will require some balance and some kind of pivoting of the feet. So if you want to be close to a wall or a chair, please feel free to grab onto something for stability. So here we are in this low lunge position. From here, we're going to pivot the feet, both feet kind of face out, toes out, heels in. We're going to come up to goddess pose. So here we're reaching the knees open, reaching the chest open, and then pivoting the feet once again. So all sets of toes turn forward towards the short end of the mat. We're in that runner's lunge. And then we're going to turn all the toes kind of and the torso towards the long end of the mat. Toes reach out at an angle. Chest is open. Inner thighs are open. You're feeling a squeeze through the gluteal muscles, the outer hips. And then once again, coming back into that low lunge. And one final time, pivoting the feet. You can even walk the hands towards the middle of the mat. Lift up and open for your goddess pose. Feeling the whole front body nice and open. And then again, pivoting the feet, taking the hands back to frame that right foot, and we'll step left foot forward to meet the right. Finding a halfway lift here. On the inhalation, exhaling and folding forward. As much of a bend in the knees as you'd like. And then rooting through the feet to rise, inhaling all the way up to standing. We'll take the left hand to the right wrist and reach over towards the left, feeling that pull or lengthening through the right side of the body. Inhaling center and exhaling, switching sides, finding that length now through the left side of the body. On the next inhalation, back to center, exhaling, sweeping the hands to the low back, lifting the chest, supporting the low back with the hands. Returning back to neutral, standing, feet about hip width distance apart, and we'll inhale, arms up, and exhale, fold forward. Inhale for your halfway lift, and then exhale, fold in. From here, we're going to step the right foot back into our runner's lunge or low lunge position. Again, you could be down on the knee if you'd like to, if that feels more supportive, totally fine. Just kind of settling in there. And then you can either walk the hands along the mat or you can kind of stand up if you'd like to. We're going to pivot the feet so that we're facing the long end of the mat with toes angled out, heels angled in. Hands can be holding onto something. They could be at your sides, or you can reach them up and open, elongating the torso, feeling that squeeze through the backs of the legs. And then once again, pivoting the feet so all of the toes turn towards the short end of the mat or the top of the mat in that runner's lunge. Left knee will be stacked on top of left ankle. And then again, pivoting the feet, pivoting the torso, finding the goddess pose, arms can reach open. Breathing here, feeling that opening through the front of the body, weight evenly distributed on the feet. And then again, climbing the hands along, pivoting the feet, coming back into that lunge position. Last time we'll flow through this. Hands are framing that left foot. And then again, coming back into the goddess pose, pivoting the feet, arms open, squatting through the legs, building strength and stamina. And then from here, pivoting all of the toes towards the top of the mat. Taking that right foot forward to meet the left. Inhaling for a halfway lift here. And then exhaling, folding forward. If you'd like to, you can take opposite hands to opposite elbows. Kind of dangling a little bit, maybe swaying side to side. And then gently releasing the elbows, rooting through the feet to rise. And coming all the way up, articulating the spine back up to standing, reaching the arms, maybe taking the gaze upright. And exhaling, releasing the arms at your sides, finding neutral standing. Rooting down actively through the feet without locking the knees. Finding a focal point perhaps to gaze at. Inviting some length into the back of the neck. And perhaps feeling a sense of strength and groundedness. Taking that invitation to meet yourself exactly where you are. Come home to whatever is. And feel perhaps a sense of strength right here. Just in this moment, exactly as it is. As you're ready, inhaling the arms up and exhaling, feeling all the sensations as you float down into your forward fold. Inhale, find a halfway lift. And then exhaling, folding back in. From here, we're going to step the right leg back into a lunge position. Again, it's always fine to have that knee down on the mat. Otherwise, we're elevated. And we're going to take the right hand either to your mat. If you've got a block, you can take it to the block, the chair, whatever props you have with you. And we'll reach the left arm up towards the sky, towards the ceiling, rooting actively into the right hand so we're not dumping a lot of weight into the right shoulder. And exhaling, left hand comes back down. From here, we're going to find another kind of mini flow between two poses. So we're going to make our way back into halfway splits. Now, if you want to, you can stay with the right hip stacked on top of the right knee, or you can take it back a little bit further, just kind of sitting back onto that right heel. Right toes are tucked under. And maybe you're hinging forward a little bit over the left leg. Maybe you're a little more upright. Now, if this does not feel okay on the right knee, there are options. You could take a standing kind of stretch for that front hamstring muscle, set of muscles. You could have the hands on a chair or blocks and just kind of straighten through that front left knee. Totally fine if you don't want to be down on the right knee. From there, we'll begin to pivot forward back into that runner's lunge position. Taking that right hand down, left arm reaches up as we twist. Hugging the left outer hip in for stability. Staying really grounded through that back right leg as the right heel reaches back. Exhaling, releasing left hand and coming into your halfway splits, whichever variation you're choosing for you. Finding some length in the spine, hinging forward over that left leg. Breathing here. If you're doing this version, probably getting a little stretch through the right foot as well. And then beginning to lunge back into that left knee. Elevate the right foot or right knee and inhale, open the left arm into your runner's twist or lunge twist. Exhale, release that left hand down and come back into your version of halfway splits, whether it's on the knee or not, lengthening out through the crown of the head. Getting a stretch through that left leg. And then lunging back into that left knee, uncurling or keeping the right toes curled under. And we're going to step that left foot back to meet the right. And you can press back into downward facing dog or child's pose here. Taking the hips up nice and high. Give yourself as much of a bend in the knees as necessary to prioritize length in the spine. Maybe shaking the head no gently. And then from here, we're going to come into plank position on the knees or not. Spine is long. Heels reach back, crown of the head reaches forward. and we'll exhale, lower all the way down to the mat. Curl the toes so that the tops of the feet are on the mat. Upper arms nice and close to the body as we inhale up for cobra. And exhale, lower down. Curling under the toes, pressing back to downward facing dog or child's pose. Pedaling out the feet if you'd like, lengthening the spine, gripping the mat with not just the heels of the hands, but also the fingertips, the finger pads. Breathing here. And coming to all fours if you'd like to for your transition, or just stepping that right foot forward. Finding your runner's lunge, right knee will be stacked here on top of the right ankle. And we'll take the left hand down, rotate that right arm up. Outer hips are hugging in. And part of the reason we want especially that right outer hip to hug in is so that that right knee can stay in line. Opening up. And exhaling, releasing the right hand down, curling under the left toes and coming back into your halfway splits here. So you can do this from the standing position if you'd like to, without being down on that left knee, or you can kind of sit back over that left heel, or like we did before, you can have that left hip stacked on top of the left knee and hinge over this way. Lots of options. There shouldn't be pain here. There might be some intensity, but there shouldn't be pain. If there is, definitely take one of the other options. Lunging back into that right knee, left hand will plant, right arm reaches up as we twist and open through the chest. Exhaling, taking that right hand down, hinging back into your halfway splits, whichever variation is right for you. Keeping the torso lengthened, keeping space between pelvis and rib cage, length between the crown of the head and the tailbone. And then lunging back into that right knee, left hand plants, right arm reaches up, inhaling open. Exhaling, coming into your halfway splits. Breathing here, toes reach skyward. Spine and neck are long. And then lunging back into that right knee. Left arm is rooted down, right arm reaches up. And exhaling, right hand plants, and we'll take that left foot forward to meet the right, inhaling up for a halfway lift, and exhaling, folding in. Breathing here. Maybe even taking a longer exhalation, releasing any strain or stress that may have caused. Just letting go. And then rooting through the feet to rise, articulating all the way up to standing. Maybe taking a couple of shoulder rolls here. Standing up nice and tall, plugging the feet down onto the mat. We're going to do a little more work with balance. So you may or may not want to have something to hold on to. That's totally up to you. So from here, keeping those feet about hip width distance, making sure the knees are not locked here, relatively straight but not locked. And then we'll elevate up to the balls of the feet. And exhale, lower down. Hands can be on the hips, they can be at your sides, or if you'd like to, you can reach the arms up on the inhalation and float the arms down as you exhale down. Finding as much length through the body as you move, and absolutely fine to hold on to something with one hand, or maybe even if you're not holding on to it, maybe you tap it every once in a while, tap the wall just to maintain that stability. Connecting the breath to the movement. And releasing down from that, maybe taking one more time if you'd like to, settling back into the feet. And from here, we're going to sink down into chair pose. So right away in your chair pose, feel free to have something to hold on to. Have the hands at heart center if you'd like, or you could reach the arms up. And in chair pose, inviting some length here into the low back. So a lot of times I used to do this pose and kind of stick my tailbone way out and contract the low back. See if you can put maybe a little more weight in the heels, not so much that you feel like you're gonna fall, but a little more weight in the heels, a little more length in the low back. Notice how that feels in the body, finding stability. And then we're going to take the left ankle and cross it just on top of the right knee. And you can manually adjust it a little bit if you'd like to. Flexing through that left foot helps maintain joint alignment and a little bit more stability as well. Lots of options, hands at heart center, arms can reach up. Some people like to kind of fold forward a little bit to get a deeper stretch. You could take the hands down a little bit more. Some people even like to place the hands kind of or fingertips down on the mat, the block, or a chair. Continuing to encourage that left knee away from the body. Breathing here. If you stumble out, no big deal. Just rejoin us when you're able to. And then begin to lengthen up as you're ready, no rush. And you can begin to take a kind of tip over towards the side, coming into star pose. Arms could be directly out from the shoulders, or if you want to, you can reach them kind of to frame the head. That sometimes can cause some strain in the back or make you feel like you're going to fall over. Other times it makes you feel like your core is engaged a little more, so you can play around with options. You could also take more of a goalpost arm option. Just experiment, invite that curiosity into the practice, into you as an individual. And releasing down from that. From here, taking just a couple more rounds of the inhaling up to the balls of the feet and exhaling, lowering down, floating the arms up on the way up if you'd like, and down on the way down. Taking that one more time all the way up and exhaling all the way down. Hands can come to heart center or wherever is comfortable for you. Sinking back into your chair pose. And then we will take that right leg and cross it just on top of the left knee. Hands can be at the heart. They could reach up and over, keeping that bend in the standing leg. And maybe beginning to fold forward a little bit, perhaps taking the hands down, keeping that bend in the knee. Continuing to flex through that right foot. Choosing an option that feels good for you. And please feel free, feel liberated to be a little bit curious and try different things. One of the things with having this virtual practice is that nobody else is looking at you in all likelihood, except maybe the people in your own house. So be a little curious and play around with some of these poses if you'd like to. And coming all the way back up, beginning to hinge over, arms can reach or come to the sides. Drawing the navel in towards the spine, engaging through the core. And releasing down from that. Stepping back up to the top of the mat if you're not already there. And hands can come to the hips if you'd like. We're going to step the right foot back into warrior one. So those right toes can be kind of angled up towards the top right corner of the mat. Your back leg is really an anchor plugging down. really engaged. Lunges in that left knee, arms can reach up. And then if you'd like to, you can goal post the arms, stretching the chest open. And exhale, forearms come towards one another. And inhale, open back up. Exhale, forearms together. And inhale, open back up. Taking that another time or two. Anytime you need a pause or you need to readjust, feel free to straighten through that front left leg. And then bringing the forearms together. You can keep the forearms together here, or you can take the right elbow underneath the left for eagle arms. Elbows reach up and away from the chest. Fingertips reach skyward, feeling that stretch through the upper back. If you want, you can wrap the right fingertips around the left palm of the hand, or not. You could also have opposite hands to opposite shoulders. And you can keep the arms as is, or you could take them to a chair or to heart center. We're going to transition into warrior three. So you might want to scooch the feet a little closer together. Keep the arms as is if that feels like a safe option for you. And then begin to extend that right leg back. Trying to evenly distribute weight into the left foot, gazing at a focal point, and just simply doing your best. Meeting yourself as you are right now. And then releasing from that. Coming back up to the top of the mat. Hands could come back to the hips if you'd like. Feet are hip width distance. And we'll step left leg back. Right leg stays forward. Right knee stacked on top of right ankle. Standing up nice and tall. Back leg is the anchor, plugging in. Inhale, open the elbows into those goal post arms. And moving with the breath, exhaling together, inhaling, opening back up. Taking that at your own pace. Feeling that mobility, perhaps through the chest, through the upper back. Continuing to stay stable in the low body unless you need a little pause or a break, then it's perfectly fine to extend and then bend back into that right knee. Next time forearms are together, you can keep them together, or you can take that left elbow underneath the right for eagle arms, perhaps wrapping the hands as well, lifting fingertips skyward, actively plugging that back foot down. And then maybe shortening the stance a little bit and coming into warrior three. Left leg reaches back, crown of the head reaches forward, trying to square the frontal hip points down towards the mat. But of course, these are all just suggestions, just simply doing your best right now, meeting yourself as you are. Couple more breaths here if possible. And then releasing down from that whenever you're ready. We'll begin to make our way down to a seated position on the mat. And here you can take your left foot and just kind of fold it in towards the inseam of the right leg, sitting up nice and tall. And if you have props along with you, you can certainly grab those. I often have to tuck something underneath my left knee because it doesn't sink down the same way that the other one does. So if that feels nice and supportive to have something there, please feel free to do that. If you want to use a strap, if you have a strap handy, you can certainly grab a strap. If you don't have one, definitely don't fret. It's perfectly fine not to have one. And we'll begin to rotate just slightly over towards that right leg, and either with your strap or not, climbing down, hinging forward, keeping length in the spine, keeping length and space between pelvis and rib cage. And noticing perhaps a bit of a stretch through the left low back, the QL kind of area. Feeling some space and length there, perhaps. Taking a few more breaths. And on the next inhalation, we'll take the left hand behind us, right arm reaches up, feeling some space through the front of the body. If you'd like to lift up onto the shin, lifting the hips up off of the mat and opening up towards the left, feel free to do so. And exhaling, releasing down from that. And we'll take that right leg forward, hugging this left knee in towards the chest, sitting up really tall here. And then supporting that leg with your right hand, you can take the left hand behind and begin to take a twist towards the left, opening up through the chest, reaching up through the crown of the head. Breathing here, and again, perhaps through this twist, noticing how the breath moves through the body a little differently than it does when we're in another position. And coming back through to center, taking that left leg out and taking the right knee in, using a strap or not, as you begin to first lengthen and then hinge over that left leg. Inviting perhaps some softness into the jaw, the face, the brow. And checking in with yourself. How are you now? Perhaps offering yourself some compassion if there's areas that are hurting or particularly tender right now. Allowing that to be just as it is. On the next inhalation, beginning to make your way up, and we'll take that right hand kind of back behind us over towards the side. Lift the left arm up, open the chest. Invite openness into the front body. Perhaps elevate onto that right shin, lifting the hips, reaching the arm. And exhaling, floating back down as you're ready. And we'll take that right knee, hugging it in towards the chest, sitting up nice and tall, lengthening through the crown of the head. And then from here, with all of that established length and with that really active left leg, we'll begin to take a twist over towards the right. The left hand can provide some stability to that right leg. Crown of the head reaches. Breathing here. And again, through the twist, perhaps noticing where is the breath moving a little bit differently. Is it accessing some places that it doesn't always access? And gently coming back through to center. And we'll begin to make our way down to a reclined position on the mat. If you happen to have a block, one of the ways that I sometimes like to do Shavasana is take that block and just tuck it underneath the very low back sacrum area, kind of down by the tailbone, in a way that feels supportive, not painful. Sometimes if you get it too much on the low back or that tender spot, it doesn't feel so good. So quite low down towards the tailbone in a supported bridge position, just an option. Otherwise, finding whatever type of comfortable reclined position feels good for you. Sometimes if you have a cold or a stuffy nose, it feels better to be seated than reclined or rolled over on your side. Those are also options. So it's again that invitation for curiosity. And then also receiving whatever it is that you need. So yeah, I can do that for you. Just that nice kind of compassionate response. And then feeling the breath in the body, just like we started. Maybe noticing those really obvious spaces, the chest, the belly. And then being curious about where the breath can be felt in some of the less obvious spaces. And allowing the attention to rest here with the breath. Just a short little quote to share with you here as we're in this quiet space. This one is from Jason Crandall, and it says, "The nature of yoga is to shine the light of awareness into the darkest corners of the body." From here, you can start to wiggle the fingers and the toes perhaps a little bit. Continuing to invite that curiosity into the body, into perhaps some of the unknown or less thought about places. If you'd like to roll to the side of the body as a transition up to seated, you can do that. Or you can come up to seated in any way that you'd like to. I thank you all so very, very much for sharing your practice and sharing your positive energy with each other and with me. Namaste.